It was a death that shook a kingdom to its core. When the news reached Versailles, even the Sun King, Louis XIV, was said to have wept. A cannonball had struck down not just a man, but a legend. Henri de La Tour d'Auvergne, Viscount de Turenne. For France, it was as if a shield had shattered. For his soldiers, as if they'd lost a father. Turenne was more than a general. He embodied French military glory. His story is one of genius, dedication, and a final, fateful campaign that sealed his place in history. Turenne's career spanned decades, from the 30 Years' War to the Franco-Dutch War. He was a Marshal of France, respected by friends and foes alike for his skill and cunning. Napoleon would later study Turenne's campaigns obsessively, calling him one of history's greatest captains. His death was a national tragedy, echoing across Europe and leaving a void impossible to fill. In the summer of 1675, at 63, Turenne led the French army on the Rhine, still at the height of his powers. This final campaign would become his masterpiece, a testament to a lifetime mastering the art of war. It is a tale of two brilliant commanders locked in a deadly duel of strategy, patience, and the fine line between victory and disaster. And it all ended on a small hill near Salzbach in a single shattering moment. To understand Turenne's final battle, we must first understand the world he fought in. The year was 1675. Europe was engulfed in the Franco-Dutch War, sparked by Louis XIV's ambition to expand France and punish the Dutch. The French invasion was initially unstoppable, but the Dutch flooded their own lands, halting the advance and buying time. Soon, a coalition formed. The Holy Roman Empire, Spain and German states joined the Dutch against France. What began as a swift invasion became a sprawling, continent-wide struggle. The Rhine frontier was now vital. If imperial armies invaded France from Germany, Louis XIV's ambitions could collapse. The king needed his best commander to hold this line, Marshal Turenne. In 1675, the Rhine became a theatre of immense strategic importance. Turenne's mission: keep the imperial forces divided, protect Alsace, and take the fight to the enemy. The war was now a complex web of alliances and shifting loyalties. And it was here that Turenne would face his old rival, the brilliant imperial general Raimondo Montecuccoli. Marshal Turenne led with quiet confidence and deep thought, earning the devotion of his men. He was no grand orator. He led by example, sharing hardships and building unbreakable loyalty. War to Turenne was a science. He preferred maneuver and cunning over brute force. He was a master of logistics, always planning supply lines and studying terrain for any advantage. His unpredictability kept enemies off balance. He could march for days, then strike where least expected. Facing him was Raimondo Montecuccoli, an Italian nobleman and imperial commander, Turenne's equal in skill and caution. Both men were scholars of war, valuing maneuver and supply over reckless battle. Their rivalry was legendary, a duel of intellects, not just armies. Soldiers on both sides watched their commanders' chess match with awe and trepidation. Montecuccoli famously said, "A man must have made war against him to know what he is." This was not just a battle, but a contest between two of history's greatest minds. The summer campaign of 1675 began as a slow, deliberate waltz of armies. Turenne, with his disciplined French force, crossed the Rhine, aiming to prevent Montecuccoli from uniting with other imperial troops. He relied on speed and surprise, outmaneuvering the Imperials and forcing them to abandon their plans. For weeks, the armies marched and countermarched, each seeking a positional edge. Turenne was everywhere, scouting, planning, adapting. Montecuccoli matched him move for move, refusing to be trapped. By late July, both armies faced off near Sasbach, the landscape a patchwork of woods, hills and streams. Montecuccoli entrenched his army on high ground, daring Turenne to attack. For days, the armies stared each other down, tension mounting. Turenne knew a frontal assault would be suicide. He searched for a weakness. He rode out daily, studying the enemy lines, looking for a way to force Montecuccoli out without a costly battle. On July the 27th, Turenne believed he'd found his opportunity, a hill from which his artillery could threaten the imperial camp. The final act was about to begin. The fate of the campaign hung in the balance. On July 27, 1675, under a humid drizzle, Turenne rode forward to oversee the placement of a new artillery battery. He was in high spirits, confident his plan would force Montecuccoli to abandon his position. Dismounting beneath a walnut tree, he directed his officers. Certain victory was near. Across the valley, Imperial gunners spotted the group of French officers and fired. The cannonballs screamed through the air. Turenne instinctively ducked. It struck a branch, then ricocheted, hitting Turenne squarely in the chest. He collapsed, killed instantly. The same shot tore off the arm of his lieutenant, Saint-Hilaire, who, in his grief, told his son, "It is not for me you should weep, but for the death of that great man." The heart of the French army was extinguished in a single, random moment. News spread like wildfire. First disbelief, then despair. Officers tried to conceal Turenne's body, but the truth could not be hidden. The soldiers who loved him as a father were overcome with grief and rage. The plan, the confidence, the campaign, all evaporated in an instant. The guiding genius of the French army was gone. The French soldiers' grief was immediate and profound. Hardened veterans wept openly. Discipline dissolved into sorrow. "Let go the bridles! Our father is dead!" cried one old soldier, capturing the army's heartbreak. Turenne's humanity had inspired fierce loyalty. He shared hardships, forgave mistakes, and led by example. Even the enemy mourned. Montecuccoli ordered a ceasefire and remarked, "A man has died today who did honor to mankind." The French officers tried to hide Turenne's body, but chaos reigned. The plan for battle was abandoned. New commanders could not agree on a course of action. The army, poised for victory hours before, was now paralyzed by shock. The loss of one man had changed everything, revealing how much depended on Turenne's singular talent. The Rhine front, once secure, was suddenly in crisis. The fate of the campaign had turned on a single cannonball. With Turenne gone, command fell to his lieutenants, Delorge and Vaubrun, who immediately began to argue. Lacking Turenne's authority and vision, they abandoned his intricate plan and chose to retreat. The disciplined French force began to unravel. Montecuccoli seized the opportunity and pursued. The French retreat turned desperate. At Altenheim, the rearguard fought a brutal battle to allow escape. Vaubrun was killed. The French suffered heavy losses, but managed to cross the Rhine, battered and demoralized. In days, Turenne's brilliant work was undone. The Imperial army, once on the defensive, now invaded Alsace, pillaging the land Turenne had fought to protect. The Rhine front was in crisis. Louis XIV rushed the Prince de Condé to stabilize the situation. Condé halted the advance, but at great cost. Turenne's death had cost France the initiative and prolonged the war. Turenne's death sent shockwaves far beyond the battlefield. He was buried with honors reserved for royalty, later moved to Les Invalides among France's greatest heroes. Turenne became a national icon, his legacy studied by generations. He transformed war into a science, emphasizing planning, logistics, and maneuver over brute force. His philosophy influenced military thinking for centuries. Napoleon called him one of history's greatest commanders. Napoleon's own strategies owed much to Turenne's lessons. The shadow of the old Marshal loomed over battlefields long after his death. Turenne's life shows how one person's talent and character can shape history. His presence held the Rhine for France. His death caused its collapse. The tale of Turenne and Montecuccoli reminds us that history is a human story, of genius, rivalry, and tragedy. Turenne's life was a testament to the power of the individual, and his death its most dramatic proof.